I can't imagine what this countryside looked like, 100 plus years ago.
The soils in this region, from the agriculture standpoint, provides so much opportunity for our food.
Poor soil health impacts the entire landscape.
There's over 8 billion living organisms in one handful of soil.
The work that we do in the wetland landscape affects uplands, it affects cropland, and this all benefits other species of wildlife.
There is something about that ringneck pheasant that just makes it a different creature. It's a different animal. You see a big horizon, you follow a couple of really nice dogs, and then you see that big cackling rooster come out.
Get 'em.
Ducks Unlimited Television is presented by Drake Waterfowl Systems, innovators in waterfowl hunting.
Thanks for tuning in to Ducks Unlimited TV. I'm Ashley Horvitz. In this episode, DUTV co-host Doug Larsen travels to the prairie pothole state of South Dakota. Larsen got lucky and drew an out-of-state waterfowl license for this season. He is joined there by an impressive collection of DU volunteers to hunt for ducks and pheasants. We explore the Ducks Unlimited Soil Health Initiative, an expansive network of prairie pothole habitat in South Dakota that supports not only waterfowl, but a host of other wildlife species. All coming up next on DUTV.
The prairie pothole region is DU's #1 priority area. Of course, that's because of the importance for breeding waterfowl. More than 2/3 of all of the continent's ducks come from this very region right here.
The habitat here alone, what you see on the landscape, is truly one of a kind. I realized that when I came out to South Dakota. I had no clue what South Dakota was even about, quite frankly, when I moved out here. So when I was out here and I was able to experience it and the value of, the agriculture that sustains the human population, but you also need to have a harmony with wildlife populations as well.
In order to impact conservation on this landscape, we have to take a look at the big picture.
It was really an eye-opener for me to come up here and ride around with the people who ride around on the ground. The waterfowl biologists, the agronomists, the people that are out here doing the heavy day-to-day lifting.
Ducks Unlimited has been working with farmers and ranchers in this area of the prairie pothole region in South Dakota specifically. Pretty heavy here because 90% of the land is owned privately here in the state. We're not going to be able to work on 10% of the ground and get conservation work done.
For the people of the prairies, it's important that we pass along not only healthy wetlands, but also healthy soils that support families, support the farm economy.
And that's why Ducks Unlimited created these programs to assist farmers and ranchers directly on their operations.
It's interesting to me that South Dakota shares, in a different way, some of the same water problems that we're seeing in some of the other states, some of the other northern tier states.
Especially in 2019, South Dakota saw record precipitation across the entire state. Really rainfall like we've never seen before.
It's really interesting to hear about from the folks that I hunted with what DU is doing and how they're involved in solving many of these water problems.
And lots of people struggle with the deal with water on this landscape. So it opened a lot of eyes as to how do we manage this, and I think soil health is really getting a lot of attention.
So one of the problems we have in agriculture with soil health is you have two big schools of thought. One's the no-till, and then there's the more conventional chemical fertilizers where it treats the soil as nothing more than media. So what we put into it is what you're going to get out of it, rather than the regenerative ag way. The one we're most passionate about is you're using Mother Nature to your benefit. If you take into consideration your soil as a living organism, one handful of soil, there's over 8 billion living organisms in one handful of soil. So if you treat the soil like it's supposed to, like you should treat it, with care and biologically correct things, then it will produce for you.
If we can treat some of these problems and nuances with cover crops in a more holistic approach, then and help the bottom line of the farmer and rancher, then that's the way we want to move forward and be there to step with them and assist them with that.
That's terrific. And I mean, I look at this, I mean, to me, the prairie pothole part of the country is like, you know, it's the Amazon for waterfowl. I mean, this is the absolute mothership of, you know, where the ducks are produced and raise the young and then move on down the flyways. And it's vitally important that we're looking at this stuff and hanging on to every last acre.
Ducks Unlimited Television is presented by Drake Waterfowl Systems, innovators in waterfowl hunting. Mossy Oak Shadow Grass Habitat, the official camo of Ducks Unlimited. Browning Firearms, the best there is. Native Nurseries, hand-selected, hand-grown plants for wildlife. Higdon Outdoors, quality, customer service, innovation, that's Higdon. Mossy Oak Properties, America's land specialist. And Ducks Unlimited celebrates 15 million acres conserved.
There's a certain kind of stigmatism with producers that if you go into no-till and you're into cover crops, that you're going to be overrun with weeds, or you don't have a cash crop growing on the ground, that you know, you're not making any money.
That's one of the challenges. How do we convince people that soil health and regenerative agriculture is a good system when they've been using a traditional system for decades, you know, sometimes within a family?
Historically, you know, we understood that, you know, Mr. Farmer went out, planted his corn, picked it, and then turned the dirt over, and then started that cycle over again. But we're learning, I think, now, and forgive me if I'm being very basic, but we're learning that's really not the best idea, right?
Correct. You know, with the new seed hybrids and everything that we have, we realize now that it's, you know, we can stop that multiple pass of tillage and just, you know, go completely no-till. And if you're, you know, talking about like DU's program, the regenerative ag side of things, where we're incorporating cover crops and livestock into the fields and things, then you really start seeing the benefit. I mean, reducing a couple passes, that's you know, 45, 50, 60 bucks an acre. And so most of these guys, you know, they're 5,000, 6,000 acres. That adds up really quick.
Healthy soils are actually alive. They're full of bacteria, fungi, all sorts of microbiology that are living in the soils.
So when you continuously till soil, you're losing your soil structure, your aggregate stability.
All of that biology it dies off. What it comes down to for me is just not a very good way to manage water in the prairie pothole region that is susceptible to both really wet cycles and really dry cycles. And when we do that, there's a tendency to create short-term solutions, and the big impact here is, of course, the installation of drain tile. So a lot of times it's hard for people to understand the connection of soil health and waterfall and wetlands and wildlife. So we often use what's called the rainfall simulator, and we collect 2 samples. One is a conventional agricultural system with annual tillage and just a corn soybean rotation, very low diversity. The other sample is a well-managed rotation, high diversity of crops, no annual tillage, and it actually has livestock integration as well. So we have cattle coming on the cropland too. So really incorporating all the soil health principles. So when we have the rainfall simulator, we dump the equivalent of 1 inch of rainfall on both of these trays. And you immediately see in the conventional system that massive flush of water that's going in the runoff container. That's very similar to what's ending up in our wetlands and rivers and streams. On the other half, our well-managed system, that rainfall event is soaking straight into the soil. Almost virtually no runoff at all. That's going to be beneficial again for storing water for later use and resulting in clean water. Any water that does end up downstream or in our wetlands is going to be clean and healthy for people and for waterfowl.
You got to look at the soil as your bank. You're getting out of it what you put into it. So maintaining diversity, you know, rotating crops, all that is a big piece of the pie of successful farming.
North America's prairie pothole region is considered the duck factory, but it's home to a lot more than just ducks. Many big game species such as white-tailed deer, moose, and pronghorn antelope call the area home as well. And there are plenty of upland birds. South Dakota's habitat is famous for its thriving pheasant population. All these animals rely on clean water for survival. Ducks Unlimited's work in the region, restoring and preserving wetlands habitat, helps to provide those clean water sources. Wetlands are nature's natural water filters, removing harmful materials and leaving behind higher quality water, benefiting all the wildlife in contact with that essential resource. DU focuses its time and resources on waterfowl and wetlands conservation. But what we do has far-reaching effects well beyond those primary goals. In the prairie potholes and throughout North America, our work continues to support not only waterfowl, but other wildlife and people too. For more information on helping Ducks Unlimited's wetlands conservation efforts, visit ducks.org.
DU Insights is brought to you by Mossy Oak Properties. Find your favorite place at mossyoakproperties.com.
You know, I'm so invested in duck hunting and I love duck hunting so much that I focus on the duck side of Ducks Unlimited. But they're starting to close the larger circle with things like water and water quality.
Farmers and ranchers are truly the way moving forward, putting conservation onto the ground.
Our pheasant hunt on Bruce Nolan's property was a lot of fun. He invested in this property a number of years ago. It was highly degraded. He planted grasses back into there, restored some of the wetlands.
And that's something I really enjoy, is the taking bad ground and making it productive. So I've learned a lot from DU and their biologist and the soil conservation end, so it just kind of all goes hand in hand.
Thanks to both you and Annie for everything you've done. Your private support as major donors, helping us out with these soil health programs, getting them kick-started.
Glad to be able to be in a position to do it.
I can't imagine what this countryside looked like, you know, 100 plus years ago before it was broken up into farming.
You can look down at the grass here and you will find easily 100 different species in a native prairie sod.
We were fortunate enough to hunt a piece of real native prairie. And it was such a throwback to see that switchgrass prairie and what it looked like, you know, probably back in the buffalo grazing days. And that's historically what was here.
So cool being out in these native restorations. And it used to be tall enough to cover the back of your horse out here. They're full of all those little invertebrates and snails and stuff that supply the ducks food in the breeding season. But they can be dry for 5 years. As soon as that water comes back, here comes all that invertebrate life, and they just explode with productivity. That's what makes it so unique out here.
And that just goes to show that the diversity on the ground translates directly onto the landscape and into the air for waterfowl and other bird species.
The way the birds come out of cover, typically, especially if you push a strip of cover or you push through a field.
Look at that hen.
As things start to happen, you'll start to see hens come out, and it builds the anticipation because you know those hens are going to come out first. So as you're walking in a line or as a twosome or dogs in front, you know, hen, 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 and then rooster.
The soil health movement is nothing new. Really, it's about getting back to what has been done on the prairies for tens of thousands of years. In a prairie system, there was no tillage, there was no soil exposure, although there was high disturbance through fires across the prairies and intensive grazing with large herds of bison.
With these prairie soils particularly, they evolved with hoof action and the saliva of livestock, bison and mammoths and so on. And so the protozoa and everything in the soil evolved that way. And a little bit of retrospect is if you take into consideration your soil as a living organism, one handful of soil, there's over 8 billion living organisms in one handful of soil.
It's really important anytime you shoot a gun that you protect your hearing. That loss is permanent, it's irreversible, but a lot of waterfowl hunters especially don't want to wear protection to the blind. They want to hear the ducks overhead, they want to joke and talk with their friends, they want to hear their calling. It's really important to a lot of people. Well, now you can. Now you can protect your hearing and hear the hunt, and that's the motto actually of Tetra. Before you get them, you take an online audio test. And when Tetra sets up your device, they're taking that test into account and they're compensating for the deficiencies in your hearing. And then they take it to another level. You can have different programs, different frequencies are isolated and boosted depending on what activity you're participating in. They've got a turkey setting, they've got a waterfowl setting, an elk setting, an upland setting, target shooting setting. All of them designed to help you hear that particular part of the hunt, whether it's an elk bugling or a turkey gobbling or spitting and drumming or whether it's ducks, duck wings overhead. And the waterfowl option for these are specially designed to let you hear the sound of ducks overhead, conversation in the blind, and the sound of your calling, which is really important to a lot of callers. And if you think about it, duck wings, conversation, and calling, that's almost all the duck hunting right there.
Let's go.
And they come in 2 models. What I have are the Alpha Shield, which is a universal fit. They have these cups on the end, which are interchangeable, so that you can find the ones that fit your ears. They also have a molded option where you can send in an impression of your ears and have a true custom plug made. That's called the Custom Shield. So these are comfortable to wear. I've used electric earplugs in the past and really didn't like them very much. These are comfortable. They protect my hearing really, really well. There's a really good seal here, and I feel like when I've been out shooting targets that my ears aren't ringing like they sometimes have been with plugs in the past. I can hear everything that's going on around me. And that's important, and again, that's their motto, hear the hunt. And they want you to hear the hunt now. They want you to hear the hunt in 10 years, in 15 years, whatever. But whatever you do, you need to start protecting your hearing today.
Ducks Unlimited's Guns and Gear is brought to you by Tetra Hearing, built for hunters by hunters. Calls, wings, or triggers. Hear the hunt like never before. DUTV is powered by Zinc Calls, a champion in every call. Browning Ammunition, the best there is. Biologic, scientifically proven wildlife products. Purina Pro Plan, nutrition that performs. Tetra Hearing, more than hearing protection, it's hearing perfection. Closed captioning for Ducks Unlimited Television is brought to you by Mossy Oak Bottomland, the official timber pattern of Ducks Unlimited.
So since DU has taken such a strong approach with the soil health program, we have agronomists and biologist staff that actually work one-on-one with these farmers and ranchers. We can provide the technical assistance to answer questions that they might have.
One thing that we always talk about is organic matter in the soil. And so whenever you look at historically what the organic matter levels would be, native prairies can be upwards of that 8 level. So we're always striving to increase organic level in cropland, likewise just this pasture. So Brian, he does a lot of soil testing for Ducks Unlimited with some of our programs, and so a lot of the organic matter in cropland, especially conventional farming, comes down to 1.5 and 2% organic matter, and that's just not a feasible way to move forward.
And we also find opportunities for financial assistance. A lot of producers have a hard time trying to justify the cost of cover crops that they aren't typically used to. How do you spend that money in between cash crop rotations? We also had the slake test, which is taking 2 clumps of soil, one which is again the conventional system, the other sample is the well-managed system with high crop diversity, no tillage, and livestock integration with cover crops. So you put two clumps of soil into the water, and what we're looking at is how do these break down. And you'll notice right away the conventional system, it just immediately starts to dissipate into the water. Whereas in the well-managed system, the soil biology has resulted in increased soil structure. It's able to retain itself even while being completely submerged in water for 5 to 10 minutes. You know, after 12 minutes in the slake test, the conventional system was completely gone. We do whatever we can to keep those wetlands healthy and intact, and really this holistic approach is one of the best ways to do that. Working with farmers and ranchers one-on-one, having specialists with them to help them utilize new practices and understand new concepts, and really help them improve their profitability and enhance these wetland landscapes, increasing diversity, you know, as a whole on the whole landscape. So just all sorts of wins going on in our #1 priority area. So really cool stuff. You know, as we shift more into the agronomy field, we're opening up new relationships with people that we haven't worked with in the past. Really helped us approach new landscapes that we haven't been able to touch, and work with new partners on what we're doing. So.
The prairie pothole region of North America plays a huge role in waterfowl breeding success every year. In South Dakota, Ducks Unlimited is paying close attention to not only the water, but how the soil makes a big difference in the health of the land. A special thanks to all the DU volunteers that made this episode possible. Your selfless dedication to the DU mission makes any wetlands conservation goal attainable. Thanks for watching and for backing waterfowl conservation through your support of Ducks Unlimited. Please visit us anytime at ducks.org, and see you next time on DUTV.